For centuries, ancient Egypt has captured the imagination of the world. Towering pyramids, mysterious mummies, and golden tombs have become symbols of a civilization that seemed almost divine in its mastery of architecture, astronomy, and the afterlife. But behind the splendor of pharaohs and temples lies a much darker, lesser-known story, one of ruthless power struggles, secret rituals, brutal labor, and a society driven by fear, not just faith. These are ancient Egypt's dark secrets, the shadows cast by a land bathed in the desert sun. The glory of the pyramids, for instance, conceals a harsh reality. While popular myths once claimed they were built by slaves, historians now agree they were constructed by tens of thousands of workers, many of whom were conscripted laborers or peasants working under grueling conditions. Though they may not have been enslaved in the traditional sense, their labor was anything but voluntary. These workers toiled in the scorching heat for months at a time, suffering injuries, exhaustion, and often death. Archaeological digs around the Giza Plateau have uncovered worker cemeteries that show signs of broken bones, poor diets, and harsh treatment. These monuments to the divine pharaohs were, in truth, built on the backs of a working class whose pain and sacrifice was never inscribed in hieroglyphs. Pharaohs themselves were far from the godlike figures they claimed to be. Many were ruthless autocrats who ruled through fear, manipulation, and divine propaganda. To the common people, the pharaoh was Horus in the flesh, a living god who could command the Nile to flood or armies to march. But behind closed palace doors, royal families were torn apart by betrayal, assassination, and incest. Power was often maintained not through divine favor, but through ruthless politics. Hatshepsut, one of the few female pharaohs, had her legacy nearly erased by her successors. Thutmose III, likely motivated by resentment or political necessity, ordered her name chiseled off monuments, her statues smashed, and her memory wiped from the record. Erasure was a form of execution in ancient Egypt, the belief being that to remove a name was to destroy a soul's chance at immortality. Even the revered practice of mummification hides grim realities. While the Egyptians saw it as a sacred process that prepared the dead for eternal life, the embalmers themselves were often viewed as unclean and untouchable. These workers operated in the shadows of society, conducting highly secretive rituals meant to protect the deceased from malevolent spirits, and perhaps from the wrath of the gods themselves. Some embalmers were known to take shortcuts, removing organs hastily, or even reusing materials from previous mummies. There is also evidence that tomb robbing was not only a crime of the poor, but a practice that reached into the upper echelons of Egyptian society. Some priests and officials may have participated in, or turned a blind eye to, the looting of graves to fund their own ambitions. The Valley of the Kings was meant to be a place of eternal peace, but for many mummies, it became a battleground between greed and sanctity. Religious rituals themselves could be disturbing. Animal sacrifice was widespread, and certain temples performed mass killings of cats, ibises, and crocodiles, creatures believed to be sacred to the gods. In some periods, tens of thousands of mummified animals were buried as offerings, raised in mass breeding centers, and slaughtered for spiritual purposes. These acts were meant to please the gods, but they also reveal a theology deeply tied to fear, control, and appeasement, rather than love or morality. The gods of Egypt were not gentle beings. They were complex, contradictory, and often terrifying. Seth, god of chaos and storms, was both reviled and revered. Sekhmet, the lioness goddess, was believed to drink the blood of enemies and had to be placated with festivals of intoxication so she would not destroy mankind. To worship in ancient Egypt was to live under the shadow of divine wrath as much as divine protection. Even the famed Book of the Dead, which promises a guide to the afterlife, paints a chilling vision of what lies beyond. In the underworld, The soul is judged by a tribunal of gods. One's heart is weighed against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth. If the heart is found heavy with sin, it is devoured by Ammit, the devourer of the dead, a hideous beast part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus. Eternal oblivion awaits the unworthy. The Egyptians were obsessed with immortality, but it was a terrifying conditional promise. You had to pass a series of spiritual tests, know secret names and incantations, and be buried with the correct amulets. One mistake, one forgotten spell, and your soul could be lost forever. Eternal life wasn't a reward. It was something to be desperately preserved through ritual, wealth, and fear. Then there are the secrets hidden by sand and silence. Ancient Egypt had its own taboos and forbidden knowledge. Magic, or Heka, was not only practiced by priests, but also feared by rulers. There were laws against certain spells, and people could be punished or executed for using sorcery to influence others. The My Books of the Underworld, a collection of mystical texts describing the afterlife, were so sacred that only select priests could read or copy them. The concept of hidden knowledge was central to Egyptian belief, and even the gods were said to keep secrets from mortals. The high priests of Amun at Karnak eventually became the pharaoh himself, holding divine secrets that could make or unmake a king. Even modern discoveries have added to Egypt's air of mystery and darkness. The so-called Curse of the Pharaohs emerged after the opening of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, when several members of the excavation team died under strange circumstances. While science has largely debunked the idea of a curse, the public fascination with Egypt's supernatural power remains. The mystique surrounding tombs, mummies, and ancient spells has only grown in popular culture, and some secrets remain unsolved. Who built the Great Sphinx? What lies in unopened tombs? And what forgotten names lie beneath the untranslatable script? In the end, ancient Egypt was a civilization of brilliance and brutality, of divine order and hidden horror. Its grandeur was built on blood and bone, its theology rooted in awe and dread. It mastered the art of immortality, yet lived in fear of being forgotten. The pyramids may shine in the desert sun, but beneath them lies a civilization where power was absolute, faith was fearsome, and darkness thrived in silence. These are not the Egypt of tourist brochures or textbook summaries. They are the echoes of a kingdom where gods walked with men and secrets slept in stone.